Welcome to this week's Workshop Wednesday, where we're going to talk about what's new for September 2024. And there's actually quite a bit of things that we're going to go through. So remember the one thing rule. This is a rule where we try to tell you to get one thing, one golden nugget, one thing that you can do and take and apply and start using today. And then whenever you're ready, whether it be later today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, come back and watch us again and get something else. So let's go ahead and get started with what's new for September 2024. And let's go ahead and dive in because we got quite a bit of fun stuff to go through. So the very first thing is you might see basically since yesterday, like less than 24 hours, probably less than 12 hours because they kind of do their updates late in the afternoon and this is early in the morning right now. And I don't have this update in all of our accounts. Right now I can only see it under my main account that I use with all of my other type of users and stuff like we use for our clients and all this. And I can only see this under Measure Summit. Our Measurement Marketing.io account technically is an alpha account, so I can see it in there, but I'm not allowed to show that to you for training. And because that's the alpha, you have that agreement type saying. But our sister company, Data Driven You, they don't have it. Our teaching account doesn't have it, and a lot of our clients don't have it. So thankfully, Measure Summit does, and I can show this to you today. Or else we'd be kind of like out of luck. So we are here under our business objectives and under traffic and pages and screens. If you have the life cycle, you can find the same thing, pages and screens, eventually under one of these as well. But the cool thing is we now have the ability to kind of be able to compare which pages and how they are doing over time. Obviously, we're only looking at the last 28 days, and we can kind of see, in this case for Measure Summit, obviously we basically send everybody to the home page. That's just the nature of what we do for Measure Summit, and so it makes sense that the homepage would be the one getting a lot of traffic. And so we're going to go ahead and uncheck these, and we can go ahead and say plot rows, and it's going to go through and show only what it is that we're looking for. And so we see this dotted one is the total, and then we could see all these other things. And we can have up to 5, and you could see if we weren't making any changes, this kind of is grayed out, and as soon as we start making changes, we can go ahead and do that. And so this is going to be extremely useful. We're trying to see maybe which sales page. We're sending like 3 or 4 different sales pages at the same time. Which one, how are they doing over time? Which blogs and all these other different things. And obviously we could still do the fun stuff with key events and all of that thing. Now, supposedly there's going to be some sort of anomaly reporting where basically Google's going to tell you, hey, there's some sort of anomaly here. I don't know if we're not seeing that with Measure Summit because it is very seasonal. Like we literally just started sending traffic to this very recently. And so we don't have that whole 90 days of data that it's saying it needs. So probably everything looks like an anomaly to Google right now. So you might see that if you happen to have these features onto your account and you do have 90 days of consistent data, but we don't right now. And I didn't see it in our alpha account either. So let us know if you see it and let us know what it looks like, because we'd love to see that sooner than later. And so the other cool thing that we have access to now is if we hover over this, I'm going to actually unclick on that. I'm going to hover over this, and if just leaving it here for just a second, not clicking on anything else, it gives us a description of the report, which is actually really helpful if you were trying to figure out, is this report going to answer my question? Because remember, we're always trying to make sure we're asking the right questions and getting the information we need so we can take action. If the report's not going to give you that information to answer the question, you can't take action. So you can always go ahead and click on learn more about the reports, and hopefully Krista can help you see if this is the right report for you. So that is another nifty little thing. Now, the next update, we're going to go over to, I believe it's user engagement. We're going to look for the one that says events. Again, if you have the lifecycle reports, was kind of like the OG type reports, then you will see your events in a different spot. And so you have that. And then we're going to go ahead and allow it to go through and update with our events. And what we're going to see now is this option. We have these 3 little dots over here, and it says, guess what it says? It says mark as key event. Now, none of these I actually want to mark as key event. However, generate lead actually already is. And then so it says unmark as key events. So, normally the way we go do that is through the settings, and then they just flip the little toggle, but now they just made it even a little easier to do that. Another update that I actually don't get to see, maybe you see it, but I don't get to see, and it actually is supposed to be under this old section. I'm going to minimize some of these to make it easier for us to navigate. It's supposed to be under the monetization, which makes me think it would also be under sales, and it's supposed to be a transaction ID report. But I am not seeing it, so I'm actually going to go ahead and pull this documentation over here so you can kind of see the same thing that I am seeing of, kind of where it's telling us to go to the monetization report, all these things, transaction ID. And so eventually there should be a report for us that's going to allow us to see some information about our transaction IDs. I'm not seeing that one here. We do have sales coming through. I'm not seeing it at any of the in our alpha account either, so that might be one slowly rolling out. It might be here in 15 minutes or 15 days. Sometimes these rollouts take a little bit of time, so just know you might not see everything at once. The next update is inside of your user acquisition report. So you have traffic acquisition and user acquisition. Big pro tip. Most of the time you are asking questions about traffic acquisition. You want to know, did your Facebook traffic cause the leads, cause the sales? Did your Google Ads traffic cause the sales? Did they cause this behavior? Very rarely do you ask questions about user. Maybe you want to know where they originally came from, but that's going to assume that they stayed on the exact same browser, exact same device, and all the things all the way through, and their cookies didn't clear, and all these other stuff. And in this today's day and age, that's not a thing. So very rarely will you go and ask user acquisition questions. So I'm just kind of putting that caveat, but the update is that there are now session based metrics here. So usually with user stuff, you don't have session based. So it's kind of two different scopes, two different ways of the data accumulating, because a user can have multiple sessions. Meaning I can go visit a site multiple times. Each time I visit their site is multiple sessions. And for the past 4 or 5 years, GA4 has been very strict about their scope and what can be used with each other. So sometimes if you get empty data and stuff like that, you're like, what's going on? It's a scope issue, most likely. And I know Manisha's working on a video training to help all of us understand and navigate those scope issues. But this was actually kind of a surprise, like, oh, they're putting stuff together. So that's kind of nifty. So that is your GA4 update on all those reports that are literally less than 24 hours old. Something else that they went ahead and updated, I'm going to actually go back to our events so it makes a little bit more sense. We're going to go into our user engagement and go back to our events. So this may or may not apply to you, but this session start, basically they said, hey, behind the scenes, we've updated the logic. So if you're using Google Ads, this should give you a more reliable truth, a more useful truth. So just know you might see a little bit of adjustment in your numbers, but it's supposed to be a more useful truth with that. And then also if you have any sort of applications, like where you have like what they call deep links, and there's some fixes and stuff that they did for the applications for deep links. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, which I'm assuming most of our audience are not doing the apps because they're doing, other kind of pages and stuff, then that's okay. It is quite all right, but just know that there's lots of other improvements that are kind of happening behind the scenes that we may or may not notice. We might just notice, oh, this seems a little bit more useful. So we have that. The next kind of updates, I'm actually going to pull this update screen over because I don't want to say this incorrectly, and it is actually really important. If you are using Google Tag Manager, you have a new update, basically the set consent mode override setting in the Google Tag settings. It basically lets you override the default consent setting in your website. And so just obviously you can read this for yourself. If this applies to you, if you're using consent or anything like that, just be aware that there are these things that someone could accidentally check or intentionally check, not realizing what it does. So I would just make sure that everyone who has access to Tag Manager understands what the privacy policy is, and if there is any sort of like, why, do you need to do this? Are you allowed to do this? Every privacy policy is going to be slightly different, and obviously the different countries and stuff. So just be aware that there's this thing that can allow you to override this. Now, obviously, what instance would you want to do this? There might be certain instances, I'm going to fall in the boat of Simo Ahava, and if they tell you not to track them, you shouldn't track them. So I'm not sure exactly why you would override it, but there might be unique cases. So you can always look into that and see if that applies to you, but just be aware, and then let anybody else, maybe you have some assistants and some apprentices that are in Tag Manager helping you with your client, and just let them be aware, like, hey, be very cautious with this little checkbox. You don't want to accidentally do that. For there. All right, now we get to go into Looker Studio. So Looker Studio normally has lots of updates in the fall, and they are just now starting to kind of kick that up. And so we're going to go ahead and go through a few of their updates. One, the big one, and I think this is where a lot of their time kind of went right now over the summertime, and that is they now have their Looker Studio community. And so if you are looking to get into Looker Studio and learn more about the different types of things, here's a great free community where you can go through and see what other people are doing and just kind of, get those different insights in that. So it's always great to learn from each other. And I don't know if you were like back in the day, you remember the Google communities for Google Analytics and Tag Manager. Mercer and myself, we loved those communities because you were able to, post a question and you would have, these amazing experts that would go through and answer those. And so, but now we have brought it back for Looker Studio. Maybe one day we'll get them back for Analytics and Tag Manager too. Another quick update is that they did go ahead and add in some more connectors. You can just kind of go through and see which ones you're looking for. Like if you're looking for TikTok, there's some new ones that are doing TikTok. So if you're using a paid tool or something, you could see, oh, does your paid tool allow TikTok now? Then there's another one. I think Power My Analytics now has Klaviyo. So if you're a Power My Analytics subscriber, how would I spell Klaviyo correctly? That it should be in here. There it is. Power My Analytics now has Klaviyo. So just go through. It doesn't hurt to always go through and just kind of see, are there any updates or any of the tools, like maybe you're paying for Supermetrics, and obviously they do a great job of updating on their own site to see what's new for Supermetrics, but maybe you're looking for, I think their update was Adobe Commerce. There it is, that one. And those are all like within the past week or so that these are now available. So just always go back through and look, and just because it wasn't there a month ago doesn't mean it's not there this time. And so those are your overall updates for Looker Studio and Google Analytics and Tag Manager. Now, for those of you that are using BigQuery, there have actually been quite a few updates. I'm going to actually show this. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just know Manisha on our team has been extremely excited for all this. So I'm not sure if you're seeing these dates. Manisha actually went on a family trip in July, and basically the world of BigQuery exploded. So you can see here there was kind of a gap in between some dates, and then all of a sudden it was almost every day or every other day. So if you are using BigQuery, or if you're thinking about using BigQuery, just know that the tool has been getting a lot more updates. And in Manisha's words is that the updates that they've been coming out with lately is making it a lot easier for users that are not so technical like me, easier for them to use, and maybe may be or may not be able to have like a data transformation tool. It's not quite there yet. But a lot of times if people want to use the data from BigQuery and put it into Looker, they need something in between. And what Manisha is saying, in the direction that they're going, it seems like it's going to be a lot easier to get your data out of BigQuery and use it for reports, which is fantastic news for those of us like me that don't want to have to sit there and rebuild all this data in another tool. Just makes things more complicated and you have another expense. So just be aware that those are things that are coming out and being updated. And I know she's going to be having lots of workshops and updates for you over these things as these things kind of roll out. Because obviously, as you just saw with Google Analytics, just because they announce it doesn't mean it's actually there for us to use. So sometimes it takes days or weeks for them to be available, or data collecting and stuff. So she'll keep you updated on those in separate workshops. But it is always a great time to just be aware of it and learn BigQuery and start kind of dipping your toes in there, so to speak, and being ready for this, because it definitely seems like it's getting better and more accessible for those of us that may not like super technical things. So that is your updates. We don't need to start again, but let's go ahead and talk about what was your one thing. We would love to hear about it in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'd love to have you back for the next What's New, which is always the first Wednesday of the month. We'd love to have you back. So that was What's New for September 2024, and we'll see you next time.